and tricks. We're going to be talking a little bit about ways in which we've kind of managed our time and ways that we've survived the hectic, crazy frenzy that is the quarter system. So getting into our agenda, we're going to be starting off with introductions. We're going to introduce ourselves, give a little bit of a sample schedule from one of our days as a Santa Clara student, talk a little bit about that. Caroline is going to be going into different places to study. I'm going to be talking about room reservations for the library and different buildings on campus, and some recommendations for places that you could study. Kathryn is going to be going into how to study, talking a little bit about her strategies, studying for exams, taking notes, and things of that sort. Caroline's going to be talking about resources, different kind of resources, SU-sponsored resources that you can use to help in your studying endeavors. I'm going to be going a little bit into some organization and time management tips. I'm going to be talking about scheduling and how I set up my schedules for each day. And then lastly, we're going to, oh, well, not lastly, just kidding. Next, we're going to be going into some self-care tips, which is a underrated and underappreciated part of being just a student. It's something that is really important and people don't talk about it enough. And then lastly, we're going to be having a little bit of a Q&A session at the end. Y'all can ask any questions that you might have about Santa Clara, studying, even just anything that you want. Okay, so let's start off with some introductions, and I'm going to be passing it off to, I forget who's next on the slide, Kathryn.
Hi all, my name is Kathryn. I'm going to be a finance major and a sociology minor. I'm also going to be a sophomore for the upcoming year. So on the left, as Edric mentioned, we do have like our sample schedules on what a day in our life at Santa Clara was like when we had classes. This particular schedule is when I had an afternoon class and it was only one class in the day. So I just wanted to point out that I was still able to really do a lot, especially because I still woke up early and I slept pretty early. I was still able to work out and I found time to study. So yes, whatever schedule you do end up getting in your academic session, even if it's one that you don't like, do not worry about it because you will find a way to work around it. And then my favorite study snack or something that I found eating a lot was pretzels and hummus. Yes,
I can give you one.
I would also eat grapes. Plus it was a plus if I froze them and I put like Jello packets in it because it just tasted so good, and especially like when you're working out and sometimes you want to eat a little healthy. And then my study tip is to start thinking about assignments early. And I mean thinking about assignments early just because you don't have to start it right away, but at least thinking about it really makes it helpful. So yes, I'm gonna pass it on to Caroline.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Caroline. I am a rising third year. I'm a communication major and an English minor. So here's my sample schedule. I've found that it works the best for me to have my classes kind of in the morning time and done by 2 o'clock, because then that leaves the afternoon to like go to the gym, have a little bit of downtime, and go to the library, study, hang out with friends, things like that. I like to have my afternoon wide open. And my favorite study snack is definitely trail mix. I feel like it's a good blend and it keeps me energized. Besides, I get a little sad when I eat all the M&Ms first, and then I'm stuck with like almonds for like 2 weeks getting to the bottom of the bin of trail mix, but whatever. And then my study tip, I would say, is just to read and reread and reread, because you're never really going to get all of the information the first time you read material for a class. And so it's really important to just keep on reading it again and again. So yeah, I'm going to pass it on to Edric.
All right, hello everyone. You might remember me from the intro a couple minutes ago. My name is Edric. I am a math major, and I'm going to be a senior this upcoming year. So it's about to be my last year at Santa Clara University. And here is a sample schedule from my previous winter quarter. I chose this particular schedule because it was probably my busiest quarter that I've had as a student here. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I had 4 classes in a row, and that was pretty hard. I don't recommend doing that if you can if you can afford to, not have 4 classes in a row. Some things that I want to highlight from my schedule: it says that I would wake up and eat breakfast. Normally, I'm not a breakfast person, but since I did have class from 9:15 to 2:05, It was important for me to get something to eat before class started so that I wasn't super starving during class. So that's something that I would recommend is if you're somebody who gets really hungry easily, or if you are hungry in the morning and need to have breakfast, then make sure that you have that before class starts, and it might help you focus. Another thing that I want to draw attention to is it says from 3:30 to 7:30, I would study. And that I know you might be like, oh, he studied for 4 hours. Like he's crazy. No, I didn't actually study for 4 hours. That would suck. I would take lots of breaks. I would use that time. During that time, I would do my homework and I would try to get some stuff done, but I would also pepper in lots of like time, to do stuff that I would enjoy, like read or maybe watch an episode of my favorite anime, just something that I would enjoy between like study periods. And then another thing that I want to draw attention to is the gym. Um, During Caroline and Kathryn mentioned going to the gym kind of earlier in the day. While that's awesome and super fun, personally, I get super, super winded and tired from the gym. And so I would go to the gym later on in the day. Personally, I found that more relaxing for me to go to the gym after finishing all my homework and doing all the stuff that I wanted to do for that day. So I just recommend kind of fitting stuff into your schedule in a way that works best for you. I did mention breaks, so that goes into my study tip that I'm going to present to y'all is take lots of breaks. Breaks are super awesome. I did not take enough breaks when I was studying in my first few years. Even this past year, I would try to convince myself that I could be productive for a long time, and it didn't work out super well for me. So I would recommend taking something like a 15 or 20-ish minute break for every hour that you study. That's just a general recommendation. Obviously, you want to play around with what works best for you. As for my favorite study snack, I don't really snack. I'm not a huge like snacking person, but coffee was pretty cool. I would always get up and get coffee, and I would give myself coffee while I was studying to kind of help me keep me awake. And I just like the way it tastes. So that's my favorite study snack.
All right, and now we're going to move into like the bulk of our presentation, and I'm going to be starting off by talking about where to study and some of our favorite study spots. So the first thing I want to bring attention to are room reservations. You can book rooms in the library, Lucas, Bergen, Heaphy, and Skiddy. Those four are all just academic buildings, if you don't recognize the name. And students can reserve rooms for up to 4 hours a day. And then just a side note, you can go into study rooms that are not occupied, but I think it's just important to be conscious of the fact that you don't want to like use the room when someone else has it reserved, or like to be out of the room if someone has a reservation in a couple of minutes, just in case they have like an important meeting or an exam that they need to take. And yeah, you can access room reservations at stu.edu/rooms. And then I know this is a really busy slide, but I wanted to break down the rooms, like that website, the page that shows up when you go to it. So where it says Learning Commons, and it's supposed to say Learning Commons and Library, just all doesn't fit in the little box. There's all the options for where you can reserve rooms. So you just click wherever you're looking to reserve a room. And then in this part, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I'm going over it. It says like LC and then numbers. Those are all the different rooms that are open, and LC stands for Learning Commons. And then when it's white, like most of it is, it means rooms are not reserved then. When there's a green highlight, it indicates your reservation, and a blue highlight indicates someone else's reservation. And then in the spot where it says all spaces I can reserve, you can click on that. Generally, that's what I have as my setting, but if you're looking for a 6-person room or an 8-person room, say you're studying with a group, you can kind of adjust that there. And then you've just got the date and the time, and the green highlight indicates the hours of when the building is open. And then moving on for how to make a room reservation, it is pretty easy. So you go to stu.edu/rooms, and then you select a room and a time on the grid, and you'll click OK to confirm the reservation. But you'll just select like today, tomorrow, any date. I like to book my study rooms. Like this summer, I'm in a study room right now. I do a lot of work in them, so I book them like when I know I have meetings, like the Sunday before the week. So I have them all set up, and you do the time, the duration, and then the event title. I put my name because it's just easiest to remember, and then it's like, yeah, that's her reservation. It's her name. And then when you arrive there, you just get to the room on time. You click here, there's these little tablets outside of the room, or you can check in with your reservation like online, and that's the link for it. And then moving on to other places to study, I think it's super, super important to find what works for you and what makes you productive, whether that be a quiet or loud environment, somewhere that's inside or outside, whether you're social or alone. And there's so many different options on campus and near campus. Personally, I used to love like a super loud environment. So I'd go to Starbucks when it was really busy. I would play my music really loud and then also hear all of the people talking, and somehow it helped me focus. But on campus, there's all these different options like the library in the basement, outside on any of the lawns on campus. Outside of Kenna Hall, there are these little benches. It's nice and shady. And then Dowd Hall is super like modern, futuristic feeling. I feel like a really smart person when I study there. So yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to get into how to study and how I personally prep for exams. And I just want to point out that I'm not telling you to follow exactly what I do, but this is just a kind of a schedule that personally has helped me study, and it's been getting me good grades, so I've stuck with it. So yes, if we could just, yeah. Okay, so personally, I study different for, let's say, my paper than when I would have like an econ or a math midterm or final. So this is kind of the schedule that I follow. And the first thing I do is, if my case study or my 10-page paper is due on a Thursday, mentally, I just think that it's due on Wednesday. And this really helps me out because, like, in case I do procrastinate for whatever reason or something happened, I do have that extra couple of hours or that extra day in order to finish up my work. So then starting off from the first day, so what I would do 8 days before, so that would be Wednesday, is that the first thing that I would just do is read and brainstorm. So what I mean by that is this is when I said like thinking about the assignment, it comes really in handy because I'm not really doing any work on the first day. I'm just reading what the prompt says, what my professor wants of me, and then maybe I start thinking about, okay, what do I want this paper to be? And then the following day after that is when maybe I would start looking for resources that I want to use. So this is when I'd be searching up articles. I would be seeing if like my professor assigned me a book, I'd be using that. And this is just like when I'm gathering all the information that I want to write about. The day after that is really just when I make my outline. And personally, I like doing my outline first. Like I like having my title page and my reference page done before I even start the paper. But some people do like to do that at the end. It's just personal preference, but that's what I do. And then just the next couple of days is when I actually start writing and drafting, because that in itself could take a long period of time. And lastly, before I do turn it in, I do have someone read over it, especially because my professors in the past have wanted to look over my papers before they even grade it, which I find really, really nice and helpful, especially because they can give me pointers on what's clear and what isn't. Because after writing one paper for 4 days, you kind of lose focus on like if it makes sense or if it's just because you're writing it for so long. But yes, those are just tips that I have. And then for the next slide. Yes, this is personally how I study for like an econ midterm, or basically anything that has like chapters in it, like chapters from a textbook. Normally is that I would split it up per chapter, or sometimes I would even do 2 chapters per day. It really just depends on how much time I have. But I would never really read over the whole chapter again, just because that's too much overloading for me personally. So I would just either go over my notes or redo any relevant assignments, projects, or anything that I had related to the chapter. And as time goes closer is when I would really start focusing on doing practice problems that my teacher provides, study guides, redoing some of like the online courses. But yes, a tip that I have for exams is to attend office hours, because all teachers have office hours. It's really up to you if you want to use them or not, but I highly recommend you do it, especially before exams, because they could really help you, give you some pointers and tell you maybe or maybe what's not on the exam. Okay, and then studying doesn't have to start right before an exam. You can start as soon as you get to Santa Clara. So as soon as you go on to Camino, or which is the area where you'll get all your assignments and grades and all of that, you will see colors attached to each course. And what I personally do to keep myself organized is that I make those same colors, the colors of my folders on my Google Drive, because that's where I keep all my notes. And just by doing this, it makes it really visually appealing. And also it's really easy to keep myself organized and to know where all my folders are, where all my assignments and homeworks are. So when I do study, I know exactly where all my information is at. Okay, and then one of my last tips is to take notes because unlike high school, notes are not really an option anymore when you go to college, especially because you're cramming a lot of information into 10-week periods at a time, and it's really hard to keep up mentally. So that's why I would say to take notes. But iPads aren't necessary. You could do handheld. Sometimes you could do computers. It really depends on your professor, but all of mine have been letting me do that. And I normally write notes on my computer just because I could use the Command F feature pretty easily and I could see exactly where I want to in my notes paper. And the top right, this is just a picture of what everyone wants their notes to look like. But unfortunately, that might not be the case for everyone in college. So that's why I put examples of how my notes ended up looking like. It may not look like much, but to me, I personally found it really helpful to at least have the date of what I'm doing, probably just like a little header of what to expect for like my notes. And yes, another tip that I do is I put that if I was present in class or if I was absent. And this is because when I read back my notes, I can understand what I'm reading. Like, why don't I remember this? Probably because I wasn't there. Because a tip is that most of our classes at Santa Clara are recorded. So you can always go back and see the lectures. There are some few exceptions, but yes, most of the classes are recorded. And then my last study tip I have is to study with your friends because sometimes we can't always keep ourselves accountable as much as we would like. So what I mean by this is because like for like a math problem, sometimes I look at the answer and I'm like, I think I know how to do it, but I really don't. That's why studying with your friends is really helpful because if you can teach someone how to do a problem, then you most likely know how to do it already. Yes.
All right, so now we're going to be getting into some organization and time management tips. Also, I related to the math thing a little bit too much. There have been lots of times where I thought that I knew how to do a math problem because I had the answer in front of me, but I didn't actually know how to do it. So studying with friends is definitely something that I'd recommend for that. But anyway, the number one tip that I want to give for people who want to organize their time better is to have schedules. Schedules are super awesome. They kind of give you a sense of direction and they kind of point you towards what it is that you want to accomplish during any given day. And for me, there are two types of schedule items. And within those two types, there are two subcategories. The two types are what I like to call time-sensitive events and time-flexible tasks. And then the two subcategories are work/school related kind of things. So this would be like doing your completing assignments or kind of going to exams or going to class, different things like that. And then kind of leisure/fun, relaxing type things. So this could be like attending social events, hanging out with your friends, and reading, things of that sort. For example, time-sensitive events, what I like to do is I like to put those on my Google Calendar. Those are things that are attached to like a specific time period. So like I know from, I don't know, 2:15 to 3:20, I have class. So I'm gonna put that on my Google Calendar so I know that I have class then. Or I know that my final exam is going to be on this day at this time. So I'm going to put that on my Google Calendar. I'm mentioning Google Calendar a lot. I use it a lot. There's actually going to be an event related Google Calendar coming up soon. So make sure to attend that. Oh, it's tomorrow. Cool. Yeah, that kind of sums up time sensitive events. It's things that are a little bit more rigid, stuff that are attached to a certain time. And then as for time flexible tasks, these are things that aren't necessarily attached to any specific time. Like I don't need to get them done by like, 7 p.m. or whatever. I don't want, there's no like set time that I have to do those things. But they're tasks that I know that I want to complete on any given day. So this can be stuff like working on specific school assignments, like, oh, today I want to finish my math homework, or today I want to submit my discussion post for my English class, or something like that. And it doesn't have to be restricted to just school related things. It could also be like leisure activities. Like, let's just say, oh, today I want to, I don't know, read a couple chapters of this book that I've been reading because that's fun. Or today I want to like watch a couple episodes of my favorite anime or something like that. That's also included in kind of these time flexible tasks that I want to do. And you might think, oh, that's weird. Like, why are you putting like leisure tasks like on your schedule? And that goes into like my last tip at the end, is that it's important to have like a good mix of work and slash school related tasks and kind of leisure activities in your schedule because it provides like a little bit of a balance. If you're looking at your Google Calendar and you see like, oh, I don't have class from like 3 to 7. What do I want to do? You can think, okay, I have some time to I could either complete some homework or maybe I don't feel super productive right now, or I don't feel like doing my homework. I'm a little burnt out. It says on my task sheet that I wanted to like read today, so I could go ahead and read. So it just kind of keeps things like more light, and it keeps things a little bit more refreshing, and it helps out a lot with that. So going into some examples for time-sensitive events, as I mentioned before, I use Google Calendar. Shout out their Google Calendar event. Everybody should go to that because that'll be super cool. As you can see from the screen, this comes from my schedule for my winter quarter when I would have when I would have a bunch of classes. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I had all my classes, and then on Tuesday and Thursday, I would work. So I made sure to put those in my Google Calendar. So if people asked when I wanted to hang out, or if they asked what I was doing on any given day, I could just look at my Google Calendar and say, okay, this is what I have planned for today at these times. It doesn't show on the screen, but on Tuesday later at 7:40, I would also schedule like my Barcata Gen meetings. Barcata is the Filipino club on campus. It's a fun time. You should join if you can. And that just shows that you don't have to put like all school/work related stuff on your schedule. You can show like, oh, like I'm hanging out with my friends at this time. I'm going to a social event at this time. So that could all fall under like the time sensitive category. And then next for the more time flexible stuff. So these are just like the miscellaneous tasks that I want to be kind of doing just on any given day, the stuff that I know that I want to accomplish. I use the reminders app on my phone. It's a little bit simplistic, but it did work well for me. So as you can see from the schedule, from the picture there, it just has stuff like, oh, I wanted to finish my homework today, or I wanted to submit like this thing today. So I would just write them all on my reminders app, and then on the day I would just check them off as I would complete them. And honestly, in my opinion, like, doesn't it just feel like really nice when you just check stuff off of a checklist, like things that you want to do that day? It just felt really satisfying for me. So that kind of motivated me to want to complete the tasks more. And then another thing that I want to kind of draw attention to is that it doesn't necessarily have to be like productive, like school related stuff. Like over there, it has like clean electronics. When I would do a lot of like math homework, I would always write my iPad, my Apple Pencil, and it would get super dirty. So I would like kind of remind myself to like do that kind of stuff. I'm a pretty forgetful person. So for me, it helps to like just schedule a lot of things. And that's personally what worked well for me. You don't have to be super like crazy about scheduling everything that you do in a certain day if you don't want to be, but that just gives you a little bit of a flexibility, having both the time sensitive and the time flexible tasks, in my opinion. And then to wrap up this section, here's some like general time management tips that I'd like to share. First one, it's all good to be selfish with your time. And that might sound a little bit weird, but what I mean by that is it's okay to like set boundaries for yourself. And I think that's a good skill to have both as a college student and just as an adult in general. A situation that I gave that you'll inevitably run into is you're gonna have like those friends who have like a class that starts at 1 p.m. or something, and you have your exam at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and they want you to stay up late because they want to play pool in the lounge or something like that. I'm totally not speaking from experience at all. I have never done this, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But if your friends ask you to do that, it's totally fine to tell them, okay, like I have an exam tomorrow morning. I'm going to hang out with you tomorrow. I really need to go to bed. I need to prioritize my sleep. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad friend. If people don't want to hang out with you because of that, then, you know, they probably shouldn't be the types of friends that you want to hang out with anyway. So as for my next tip, I like to make my list of time flexible tasks or like just stuff that I want to do the night before that day that I want to complete them. For me, it's a little bit therapeutic, and it relieves a lot of stress. I just get to sit there and think, okay, what do I want to get done that day? And I just write it down on my reminders app. And then I know that when I wake up the next day, I'll know like what I want to accomplish in a given day. And then this last one, in my opinion, is a little bit underrated and a little bit strange. It's to when you go and I guess set aside or plan out like the school/work related stuff that you want to complete each day. When it's time to go do those things, like complete those tasks and then like you're done. Like, you know, I feel like a trap that a lot of people can fall into, that I would fall into a lot, is I would give myself like some school/work related tasks that I wanted to do in a given day. I complete them, and then I get super like sucked into the productive like mindset, and I would like want to complete more things, and then I burn myself out because I would end up studying all day or just doing work all day, and I would tell myself that it wasn't enough. But it's really important to set aside time to do like leisure stuff and leisure activities. So definitely like when you set aside the tasks that you want to do, like complete those, know that you want to complete those that day, and then set aside the rest of the time to just relax and keep your brain fresh.
Awesome. And now we are going to get into some resources that are offered at Santa Clara because there is so much help waiting for you. So first, these first two resources might seem a bit obvious, but we've got office hours. These are provided by most professors, every professor. They do, in my experience, I've had teachers do like office hours by appointment. So you book it before and drop-ins. So like you can book your appointment ahead if you have a question about a big assignment or homework, or you can just pop in if you were confused in class the day before. And I think going to office hours is a great way to get help on anything class related because the teachers know the material the best. And it also helps you to make relationships with your teachers. You know, you get to know them, they get to know you more like outside of just the classroom experience. And then another great resource are peer educators. These are students who have previously taken the course that you're in and they like attend your class and they're just there to help. And I think they're a really great resource to use. I was a peer educator for an English class. I think Edric has also been a peer educator. They don't have peer educators in every class, but it is really nice when you have them. Some peer educators hold office hours or they'll just give out their contact information and you can reach out when needed. And peer educators are great because they know the teacher and what the teacher is looking for if you don't like want to go to the teacher, but I think these are both great options for help. And then getting into the Hub Writing Center, it's located in the basement floor of the library, and it's just a group of like student tutors that help you with like writing related projects. They do drop-ins and appointment-based help. You can book the appointments online. It's super easy for 30 to 60 minutes, I believe. And the tutors that the Hub hires are from all different majors. So you can find the perfect person to help you, whether you're working on something for an English paper, poli-sci, psych, I don't know. They have a whole wide range of tutors. And the Hub writing tutors are great because they're not just there to edit your papers, they're there to help you at any stage in your writing, whether you're just looking at the prompt and brainstorming or you're on those like last few edits of the paper, they are there to help you. And then the next resource is the Mathematics Learning Center. They offer one-on-one tutoring, drop-in help, and group sessions. And the tutors that the MLC has specialize in certain concepts and have taken many math courses. So say you're in Math 8, you can find a tutor who's taken Math 8 at Santa Clara. And that way they're able to adequately help you rather than just kind of like guessing around at what the answers might be. And I think going to the Mathematics Learning Center is a great way to get help like before quizzes and exams or even just on homework. And then lastly, I am going to be talking about the Drama Center Tutoring. They have drop-in tutoring for specific courses and the schedule is posted online. This is a great option because the tutoring is in like groups. So you can go to that if you are uncomfortable getting like one-on-one help from your professor for whatever reason, or if you can't attend office hours, something like that, you can go to tutoring and you could always go with like your classmates, things like that. And then if there's any engineers here, we have Tau Beta Pi Tutoring, which is a professional fraternity, and they offer engineering tutoring that's both online and in person. They have tutors that have taken a wide range of engineering courses, so you can find like the perfect student to help you. And yeah, you can do drop-in, just show up online or in person, or you can make an appointment.
All right, so now we're going to be getting into our final and often underrated and underappreciated section of our presentation. We're going to be talking about self-care. So my first tip for self-care is what I mentioned in my first slide, which is taking breaks. I know I've been talking about this a lot, but it's honestly something that I really recommend, really because I really suck at it. I convinced myself that I could work for like long periods of time straight. And I tell myself like, oh, if I just keep at it, if I keep working on this math proof, then I'll be able to solve it in no time. But it never works that way. And I've thought of my best stuff after coming back to something after not thinking about it for a while. So here's some ideas for what you can do for breaks. The first one is go for a walk. Going for walks is super fun and underrated, in my opinion. something cool that my brother would do. Actually, he goes to USF, but you could do this at Santa Clara too, because we have a really pretty campus. Is he would study at one place. He would study there for like an hour, and then he'd walk to another place. And the walk between studying at like the library versus studying at another building, that would be like his break, and then he'd plop down and study at a new place. That'd be a fun strategy for people who like to mix up their study environments, and he said it really helped him. In my opinion, it's always better to work with like a fresh mind for a shorter period of time and work in those like, short bursts and really get stuff done in those shorter time periods than trying to be like productive for 4 straight hours and like really burning yourself out. I've definitely fallen into the trap of like thinking that I could just solve something if I just kept staring at it. And it usually doesn't work super well. All right, next, we're going to be going into like the concept of like me time, alone time, and kind of finding hobbies that you really like. So I would talk a little bit about setting boundaries for yourself, and I'm going to stress the importance of that again. It's important to kind of set aside, like have like, rigid boundaries for yourself, even if it makes you seem a little bit less fun or a little bit more closed off. While hanging out at like social events, like at Barcata, again, Filipino Club, shout out, you should come. It's super fun. But even though hanging out at social events is, super fun and super awesome, and you should totally do that a lot because there's a lot of active opportunities at SCU to get to know people and find your sense of community. That being said, it's important to, oh yes, Fruit Basket. I'm watching an anime right now. But that being said, it's important to have like, time that you set aside for yourself and time that you set aside to do the stuff that you enjoy. That you don't have to do with other people. It's important to have that like that me time and that alone time. And next I have just examples of things that you would do in such instead me time / alone time. I've been talking about reading books and watching anime a lot. That's because I do those things a lot in my free time. I recently just started watching Fruits Basket, as Alice has pointed out in the comments. And that's been a super fun anime. But these are just a bunch of things that you could do. Totally just, I can't stress the importance of just having this like time that you set aside for yourself, because that's where you do a lot of like growth and reflection, and it's where you kind of recharge and relax, and it's just really, really great. Okay, next, we'll be going a little bit into physical wellness. I remember somebody saying in the chat that sleep is for the weak, and while that is hilarious and true sometimes, no, it's not true. I'm just kidding. Sleep is for the smart people, actually, because it's important to get enough sleep. Like sleep does so many good things for your health. Yeah, okay, sleep is for the weak. But sleep does some really, really awesome things for your health. It's just a really, really important and underappreciated thing that a lot of people don't get enough of as college students, because it's really easy to not get that sleep. It's really easy to get lost in like the homework that you're doing or the assignments, or to like hang out with friends late at night. But just getting enough sleep is very, very important. There's like so many like health benefits if you just take the time to look them up. Just getting an extra hour of sleep just can do so much for your health, and it's really important. Another, as it pertains to studying, if you're choosing between cramming for an exam and sleeping, always choose sleep. I know some of you have probably crammed for an exam super last minute and maybe done well in that exam, but just think, maybe if you were to maybe start studying a little bit earlier and gotten enough sleep the night before, just think about how much better you could have done. In my opinion, it's always better to sleep and have a fresh mind for the exam than to have like a bunch of like jumbled concepts in your head that are kind of weird and mashed together with like 3 hours of sleep. And then for my next tip, don't forget to eat. I know a lot of people who forget to have meals. If you really, really have to, if you're really busy and you forget to eat a lot, you can schedule them if you really have to, but I just recommend doing that. And then for my last slide, physical wellness, find time to exercise, find time to go to the gym or to do like a form of exercise that you really enjoy. We all kind of talked about like how we find time to go to Mali or engage in some sort of physical activity, and that's honestly pretty important for performing well in school. What people don't realize is that in order to perform well academically, you have to kind of be in good good health physically, because that's a part of, I guess, performing well. And a funny little quote that my best friend and roommate, Ryan Aquino, told me was find your gym. He said it kind of jokingly, but what that means is kind of find the thing that you like to do the most, find the form of physical activity or form of exercise that you find fun, and do that. There's no like ideal way of getting exercise in. It's just whatever you find most exciting. And what if you don't like any form of exercise, which it's pretty valid, because sometimes exercise can be annoying and it could suck sometimes. But my advice for that is to try to find something that seems interesting to you, or something that might seem fun. Maybe you think tennis, or maybe you think jogging is fun or interesting, and then like start off really slow. Go at your own pace. Ease yourself into the activity. And then maybe eventually you'll find that you actually do really like it, if you just kind of give yourself the time to get used to it, and just know that it's like doing really, really good things for you. Okay, so that's all I have to say about that. Thanks for listening to my spiel on that. Now we're going to be going into the Q&A section of our presentation. So at this point, feel free to type into the chat any questions that you might have about like study related stuff. It could be about anything you want. You could also feel free to unmute and like ask any questions you might have. But this section is for y'all, and we're here to answer y'all's questions. Okay, so I got a DM question. It says, why do I use Google over like the Apple calendar? There's no particular reason why I like to use Google Calendar. It's just what I kind of learned how to use first, and it's what a lot of my friends use. Google Calendar, there's a feature where you can kind of invite your friends to like different events using their email. So it's just most convenient for me. It's almost like, why do people use like an iPhone over an Android? It's just like other people have iPhones, so it's easier to use like the iPhone. So there's no particular reason why I use Google Calendar. It's just what I find like most convenient and what I know how to use. So I just stick with that.
Gabriella, that's a good question about our like go-to note-taking method. I've tried to get into specific note-taking methods, but honestly, what I tend to do is just take notes like throughout the class, or like the lecture, say that's what I'm taking notes on, and then just kind of write a little summary at the bottom at the end of class. And I think that's what helps, because if I don't want to like read through the whole page looking for something when I'm going back and studying, I can just look at the little blurb that I've written. And yeah, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, so personally, Cornell, no, I don't really do that. I like I said, I just like writing stuff down and using Command F to figure it out. But I do know it just depends for classes, like for textbooks. I always like write the subheadings and stuff and write notes there. Sometimes I do like ask myself a question and see if I could answer it. But honestly, a lot of people don't really have like a specific method that like at least I have seen. And then the next question is, do you use Notion or any other platform? Do any of you?
I personally do not. I just kind of stick to Google Calendar and the Reminders app. Also, Camino is pretty good. Also, fun fact, Camino is pretty much Canvas. If y'all have ever used Canvas before, but we call it Camino because I think it's because the address for Santa Clara is like El Camino. And they think that someone thought that that was clever. Personally, I think it's kind of weird. We should just call it Canvas. But anyway, Camino is pretty good for keeping track of your assignments, because there's like a to-do list feature on Camino that shows like all the assignments that you have due on a certain day, and professors usually upload all their stuff on Camino. And there's also a calendar tab that you can look, and it shows like all of the assignments that you have due. And if I'm not mistaken, you can connect the calendar tab on Camino to your Google Calendar. So there's a way to do that. Then you can have all your assignments in Google Calendar as well.
Yeah. Then we got a question about getting an iPad for notes. I personally prefer taking paper notes, and then I'll type them into my computer. But I know, Edric, if you want to talk a little bit about your iPad, I think it depends on preference. But if you're getting a computer for school, it's not like you need an iPad. I think it's kind of like preferences.
Okay, so iPads are definitely not necessary, but I will say as a math student, my iPad is I love my iPad. It's amazing. I carry it around with me all the time. I go to sleep with it. My iPad is my best friend. I love it. I'm just kidding, obviously. Um, for some of those things, you can guess which ones. But onto the point. iPads are really awesome for me because they just provide like a super convenient like way for me to like just take it out and just write down some stuff. When I would do my math homework, I'd always get eraser shavings like all over my like desk and all over the floor in my room because like I would get really frustrated and like erase my proofs all the time. So just having an iPad for notes, in my opinion, is super awesome. You can use apps like GoodNotes or like Notability, and they allow you to like organize your notes into like folders, and they give like a bunch of different like, I don't know, cool technological like note-taking ways to do stuff. Like you can color code your like writing, and you can like work on grid paper, like make the lines like super straight and stuff. So I think iPad having an iPad is definitely super helpful, particularly as a math student or like a STEM student. So I would definitely recommend having one. But if you can't afford one, or if you'd rather use paper, then like you don't have to use one if you don't want to.
Right. And then I believe the next question was from Jenny. And what resources do you use to get free/cheap textbooks? Just for starters, I would say wait until the first day because your professor will tell you what's the best way to get the book. Especially because some of the textbooks you actually need like the online version because they make you do like assignments directly on it, so you can't just get the textbook wherever. But for cheap textbook where you just need the book, I recommend LibGen. But you could also like print out some pages at the library and it costs a couple cents, like if you need to do that. Did any of y'all use any other websites?
I personally use LibGen as well. Um, if you can find your textbook on LibGen, then that's definitely where you should get it, in my opinion. Um, yeah, really awesome.
Yeah. I personally have always gotten my textbooks from the bookstore because I didn't know that there were online options. But I do like having a physical copy of like a textbook. It makes it easier to read for me. And like when you order them through the school, they have them ready for you and you just pick them up in a little box, but it is kind of pricey. So I think it just depends. And then we got a question about homework due dates. Like, is homework weekly or does it depend on the class? From my experience, I've had homework. I mean, I don't get much homework. Like I get a lot of papers, being a comm major, but in classes that have been homework heavy, it's usually due like at midnight, like after the class, or it's just like, it's not like every Sunday your homework's due, and it just depends on the teacher, but they are generally pretty clear about homework schedules.
For me personally, I've had like a mix of like papers and just like other types of classes. But for example, for me, when I took my CNI, which I know a lot of you are probably going to take, I always had reading due right before class. I'm not sure if that was like just my CNI, but normally for like philosophy and those kinds of courses, it's like reading due before the class and then maybe like an assignment once a week. But it really all just depends. But yes, all the assignments really depend on the teacher. Yeah, that's basically what I would say about that.
Yeah, I can also speak to it a little bit. For like the math classes, it does depend on the teacher too. Some teachers have assignments due daily. They'll have them due at the beginning of each class, and it'll just be like a few problems each day. Other ones have them due like weekly, like every Friday. I'll have them due. Some have them due every other class period, so you have 2 days or 2 class periods to do your homework, so that you have one day to go into office hours and ask questions. One interesting thing that I've actually seen from a professor is he assigns all of his homework at the beginning of the quarter and then makes all of it due at the end of the quarter. And it's up to you to kind of figure out, okay, like I'm going to do, like, if I want to partition my homework like appropriately, I'm going to complete my homework at this time for this section. But technically it's not like all due until the end of the quarter. So you could procrastinate and do it all at once. Never do that, by the way. Don't ever do that. But like, um, that was another like interesting way that I've seen professors kind of do homework. Also, I just saw the iPad kid comments. Excuse me. Well, that's true. Um, Excuse me. No.
Okay. So Veronica's question, she has how many clubs, organizations are you a part of? So personally, for all the multicultural clubs, which is Barcada, because I'm in it too, that's like 1 hour per week. That's for all the multicultural clubs. And on top of that, I'm also in Women in Business, and they meet like once every like other week. So it's really not a lot to manage, especially for me, because like I didn't sign up for a lot, which I definitely am going to this year. But yes, Edric or Caroline, do you want to go?
Yeah, I am in Charge, which is an all-girls workout club, and that's like about an hour to 2 hours a week, but it doesn't really feel, it's like kind of like free time because we're just working out. And then I have an off-campus job, and I think it's just important to kind of test things out and not push yourself too much right at the beginning, and just kind of see how much like being parts of clubs or like things like that fits your schedule.
I think, let me think about like the organizations that I'm a part of. Really, the main one was like Kathryn said, Barcada, which is more of like a like social-ish time commitment rather than like a, I don't know, more like a productive space. On average, most of my like time that I devoted, or like most of my time was sucked up by my schoolwork, especially since it was my junior year and being a math student and taking my upper division classes, like sucked up a lot of my time because those classes are really hard, y'all. They take up a lot of time. I think like for math 153, which is real analysis, like easily like 20 plus hours a week of studying. And that's kind of like a normal amount of work that's expected from that class. So I didn't have as much time for like other organizations. But what's going to be manageable for you is going to be really dependent on your personal like work-life balance and what you can tolerate like as a student. I think some people fall into this like idea that like, oh, like this person's a part of this many organizations or this person's taking this many classes and like I'm also a student, so I have to be taking this many classes too, and we get into like this comparison game. And it's honestly, in my opinion, it's not super healthy. I think it's more important to kind of just be honest with yourself and think like, okay, like I want this amount of free time and I want to be a part of these things, and kind of like, you know, do what you feel like you can handle and not worry so much about what other people are doing. But yeah, it's going to be up to you on what's manageable.
Okay, so for the next ones from Fiona, it's how many units is too much. So personally, if you are a first year, I would just say stick with the 4 classes, because each class is around 4 units, so it'd be around 16 units. And I would just say stick to that, especially for your fall quarter, because you're still getting used to the quarter system, which is 10 weeks, which is very different compared to like the semester. So I would say if there really is no need to, like if you're not like double majoring and doing all of this stuff that you've already spoken with your advisor separately, I'd say stick to 16 units, and then yes, because you don't want to overload, especially within your first year, because there's no need to, because there's a lot of time. People often pick up a lot of stuff in the end. And I'm also going to really quickly answer your other question. As a finance major, I have a air right now, and I think I might switch to pro just because my thing overheats a lot because I keep on downloading stuff for my spreadsheets class. So if you can financially afford it, I would say to get a MacBook Pro, and especially there's like the deal going on with Apple right now, so that might be really helpful as well.
This is before you guys answer any more questions, I kind of had a question regarding overloading. Is there like a specific amount of units that's considered overloading, or is it just anything that's more than 4 classes?
I'm pretty sure more than 19 units is considered overloading.
Okay.
And then in order to, okay, yeah.
It's more than 19 units, but let's say like you're over by like a 1 unit course, because sometimes there's like 1 unit or 2 unit courses. Those would not be considered overloading. But if it is like over 19 by like a 4 unit course, then yes. But you could also just speak to your advisor with that. They would make sure that you meet all the requirements as well.
Okay, thank you.
Alice asked about what apps we recommend for iPad note-taking. Edric, do you want to take that one? Bad boy.
Good Notes is the one that I use. I can type the name of it in the chat, but it's called Good Notes. You do have to, oh wait, like direct message it to Caroline, but it's called Good Notes. I use it all the time. You do have to pay for it. I forget how much it costs, but in my opinion, it's worth it. You asked about the premium subscription for Notability, and I don't know if that means like actually paying for, like you have to pay for the Notability app, right? Is there like a paid version of the app? I think if you're talking about the paid version of the app, then yes, I would recommend getting that. But if there's like some sort of like weekly or monthly subscription for Notability, then no, I personally wouldn't use that. But you can if you want to.
I think we'll answer this question about, oh, sorry. Whoa, I don't know what's going on. When Camino usually updates with our syllabuses, usually it's like the Sunday before the quarter starts, I think, is when most Camino pages are up and running, or like the day that class starts.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Sometimes I get an email saying that like it's up already.
Yeah, honestly, it's a little bit of a toss-up depending on who your professor is. Some professors are really on top of stuff. For example, like I just got added as a grader for a math 122 class like just now. So my professor's like already on top of like doing this stuff for her math class, like that's going to be in the fall. But other professors are might not be as on top of things. So I just recommend just checking, over and over again, and just like seeing like which classes are available there. But they should be there after the first day of class. If they're not up by the first day of class, that's really stressful. But yeah, they should be there.
All right, I think it's just about time to.
Wait, sorry, Carolyn, can we finish the last question? Because I think
Yeah.
there's one more. Okay, it was just the time commitment for intramural sports, and I know maybe one of you wants.
Oh.
that.
Yeah, I did intramural soccer during winter quarter, and we had one game a week, and so that was like an hour. And then my like team, it was just my friends that I signed up with. We chose to practice like once or twice a week. So at most it was 3 hours a week. Generally at nighttime was when our games and practices were. But I think it differs on like the sports, and if you want to like practice and stuff, there's definitely no need to practice though, usually.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit as well. For intramurals, yeah, it's mostly dependent on the team that you're a part of. Like if you have a team that's like really gung ho about winning, they might want to practice like more times. So it's kind of up to you what the time commitment is. The games itself, it depends, like Caroline said, it depends on the sport. So sometimes it can be like an hour, sometimes it could be like a few hours depending on the sports. Like soccer probably has longer games than like volleyball, for instance. So it just depends. And really quickly before we end, somebody DM'd me a question about like how much time I spend on homework. I just wanted to answer that real quick. It depends on the quarter. I think as a first year, you definitely spend a lot less time on homework. But if I had to put like a number to it, this past quarter, I would spend upwards of maybe like 30 plus ish hours on homework, which was quite a bit because I've had like some really, really hard classes. You probably won't have to spend nearly that much time on homework, but I think in your first year, but I think as a general guideline, for every like hour-ish that you spend in class, maybe plan to study for about like 3-ish hours studying. So I would just do that.
All right. If you all have any other questions, you can reach out to us. We have our contact info coming up, but it's just about 1 o'clock. So we're going to get our close started.
All right, so where to find us? In case this is your first event, we just want to plug in our Instagrams really quickly. We have our SEOL_diaries Instagram, in which you get to find out what events are coming up or see our Instagram takeovers from our orientation leaders. We also have a TikTok and a YouTube, which are being posted on regularly, such as Week in My Life, or that's also where you'll find these information sessions. And we're going to link our personal Instagrams in the chat as well as on the slides. And for our upcoming events, if you want to see more of me, I have a minoring at Santa Clara University coming up at 2 p.m. And I also have a registration resources 101 at 6 p.m. And this is like if your advising session is in this week or next week, I'd recommend to go to that just because you find out a lot about what resources you have. And then if you want to join Caroline later today with Kayla, they're doing a Bob Ross painting night in which you bring your own paint and you can paint with them and probably chat some more. Yes, I will link the YouTube right now, and also these slides will be shared with all of y'all, so you can always have access to them whenever you want. We're never going to close it. And yes, I just linked the YouTube.